This coming Tuesday, November 4th, elections for governor will be held in New Jersey and in Virginia. In both of these states, Democrats have nominated experienced women to face off against some frankly embarrassing GOP opponents. Also in both states, though, the Democratic candidate should be heavily favored to win. So we have to ask ourselves, why are so many political observers wringing their hands and worried that it's a tighter race than it should be? Well, it's probably because most Americans simply do not show up to vote. I want to make something super clear to all of you listening today. These local elections have a much larger impact on your day-to-day life than any of the federal elections that we have in even years. And your vote has such an outsized impact in local elections. So don't sit on the sidelines. Take the power in your own hands and vote in your local elections next week. Welcome back to Participation Trophy, the podcast where we talk with millennial-ish leaders who are changing the world. Today on the podcast, we have a special guest who's helping to elect candidates at every level of government and in every corner of the country. I am so excited to have her join us today to talk about why local elections are so important and how you can make a difference in your community. She's a hustler, she's an inspiration, and she's an icon. Please welcome one of my favorite people in the game, MaryEllen Veliz. Hey, MaryEllen.
Hi, Topher. It's just so exciting to be here with you today.
I'm super excited to be here, too, with you. Before we got started, we were kind of joking. We are really fortunate that we get together in person a lot. And so it's actually kind of funny that we're meeting virtually today.
Yeah, I was like, this is not our normal. I'm so used to just being able to grab coffee or, dinner with you.
Yeah, coffee, never a cocktail. Let's not get it twisted. So, MaryEllen, I'm dying to know, what was the first election that you ever voted in?
Yeah, so I had to really think back on this one because I am one of those people that I pride myself on my Van score and I'm like, I get every single one. Check. My very first election would have been voting in the 2010 midterm in Texas when we attempted to have Bill White defeat Rick Perry unsuccessfully, but that would be the very first election that I had the honor of using my civic duty and casting my first ballot.
That was also my first election, and I remember it really clearly because the Tea Party swept the board, right? And that was, I think, one of the first times that we had a lot of really far right candidates get elected in the United States, at least in modern times. And I'll be honest, it scared the pants off of me. And I remember running around my college campus at the time being like, y'all, this is really sketchy. These people are nuts. We got to stop them. We got to, and I feel like today we're sort of living in the world that is a result of that election, I feel like, in many ways.
Yeah, we thought that was scary then. And then you flash forward to now and it's like, how could it get scarier? It's just so spooky.
Yeah, it's perfectly appropriate for our Halloween episode. And I love that you also mentioned that you're really proud of your Van score, which for those who don't know, who are listening, is your how many elections that you have voted in. I used to, this probably is not something I should be admitting publicly, but I used to, when I was single, I would go on to Van before a date and look up their voter history. And then I would go on the date and I'd be like, hello, nice to meet you. Why didn't you vote in the 2014 school board elections? And they'd be like, what? How do you know that? And I'd say, well, it's public information. And then the date would usually end because it was kind of creepy. Yeah,
you had to put the asterisk of, don't worry, I don't know who you voted for. I just know you didn't vote. I'm not being a super creeper, just light creepy.
Just a little creepy. But I don't know if I'm, just bring the crazy out on the first date was always my philosophy. So you're a Texas girl living in LA. What is something about Texas that most Americans get wrong?
Ooh, well, I think, I'm from San Antonio, Texas, born and raised. I am so, so proud of being from San Antonio. And I think when I tell people I'm from Texas, especially on the campaign trail or traveling for work, everyone automatically assumes oh, you're from Dallas or Houston. I'm like, no. I'm actually from the 7th largest city in the country, San Antonio, Texas. And so I think the geography is just so huge. And so I think what they most commonly get wrong is that, one, they don't realize San Antonio is the 7th largest city in the country. Put some respect on our name, and that they, kind of always want to assume you're from Austin, you're from Dallas, you're from Houston. I'm like, no, that is not the case.
Yeah, I love San Antonio. I've been a few times with you, actually, and it's one of the cities in the country that I feel like the culture literally oozes from the sidewalk. Your sidewalks have culture. which I think is really cool in San Antonio. And I think that's really missed.
Yeah.
The first time I went, I was like on the Riverwalk and I went to the Pearl Brewery and I was like, oh my God, this city is fire. And people don't know this about San Antonio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which we have an important election coming up in just a very few days as well. San Antonio has a couple propositions on the ballot. One to vote yes for Proposition A and B to expand some of our, use more of our tourism dollars and expand our tax, the percentage of tax that is actually going to be used to ensure that we can build things like a new Spurs arena and update our rodeo to really invest in the city and pour money back in when people come and visit and partake in those kinds of, really exciting pieces of our culture and our identity.
I'm really glad that you brought this up because I feel like often on these municipal ballots, you have these in Denver, we have 2A through 2E, which is the bond program here in Denver. And people don't really know what a bond is. There are these obscure letters and only 20% of people vote on these measures. And they're actually so important. They're the way that you maintain your parks, your pools, your playgrounds, right? They're the way that you invest in critical infrastructure in a city. They are the way that you can make sure that a city has the things that it needs to be successful, to grow, to be safe and beautiful. And most cities have these kinds of things on their ballots, and most people don't even know that they're happening. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. That's in San Antonio.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, you're so right here, Topher. I think there's one point I just want to make is that these things are sometimes the most critical for our livelihoods in our local communities, but they are written in a way that is really not accessible. There's tons of text on the ballot that makes it really confusing to digest, hard to understand. It makes you think that you're paying for this tax increase when it could actually be that it is going to be tourists that come in town and stay at hotels and rent cars that are going to be paying for it. And it's so difficult when the system is made to be challenging for folks to participate when you're the one who's making the decisions and your lives are the ones that are affected.
Yeah, that's so true. So when did you start working professionally in politics?
Ooh, I always think of that as kind of a weird question because I'm professionally or unofficially, because I pretty much was destined, I think, to be in politics, despite the fact that for a good chunk of years, I tried to prove everyone wrong when they were like, oh, you're going to be in politics. And I was like, no, I'm going to go be a doctor, which was not at all what I want. True story. I tried very hard, had all these really fancy, preceptorship at a hospital. And I was like, I'm going to do the exact opposite of what everybody wants me to do. And then just fell right back into it. But, I think my very first foray into politics was probably through my dad. My dad is, my hero, and I would follow him around and he would take me to campaign rally. I have these vivid memories, but flashes of pieces as a little kid of being taken to a political rally. But he was a neighborhood association president. And I would go with him to the neighborhood association meetings. I was the youngest person in the room by far because, at the time we were still not seeing as much participation in our neighborhood association meetings. And I would pass up the agendas, all, bright eyed and super excited to hand you an agenda and see all these people in the room who really cared about what was going on in our neighborhood, whether we had potholes filled or sidewalks. And so I think that was really the moment for me that it all clicked. And then as time went on, it was okay, I'm going to get an internship on a campaign. And then my first job working for the county judge in Bexar County, Nelson Wolf. And then, from there it was, the story just unfolds. And I was working for Congressman Lloyd Doggett out of Texas for a long time. And that's, pretty much all I've done professionally.
I suspect that if you went to a neighborhood association meeting today, you'd probably still be the youngest person in the room, and you probably would still be the brightest-eyed person in the room. You're just a bright-eyed person, so I think that may be part of it. You have resting smile face. You're one of those people, which I really appreciate about you. But most of these spaces are they're older people who attend, right? The millennials, the Gen Zers are not coming to neighborhood association meetings. They're not coming to community meetings. Yeah. And we've actually talked about this on other episodes of the podcast, right? I'm on my local planning commission, and it's always very much older folks and boomers who come to give comment and participate. And the thing is those are the spaces where decisions about neighborhoods and communities are actually made. And so, and they're made by the people who show up. And when younger people who aren't, and by younger, I mean like literally like under 60, right? Like I'm using that term really broadly, don't show up and participate, right? Like the only people who have a seat at the table are older folks. And it's not to say that older folks don't deserve to have a seat at the table, but you really have to question why is that the case? And how do we fix it? And I don't know that we're going to answer that question today, but I'm curious though, is there something in your past that made you be like, I just can't sit on the sidelines anymore. I have to get involved. I have to start making a difference. I can't just let politics or government happen to me. I have to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it has to do with just being a Texas Democrat. And I love my home. I have worked in Texas politics my entire career. I worked for, like I said, a member of Congress out of Texas and did some truly amazing work. But living in a red state means that, I don't have rights over my own body. Planned Parenthood clinics are shuttered. You see in Texas that we have open carry laws, and I don't feel safe in public places knowing that there are not laws to protect us from, guns. I live in San Antonio, and that is not far down the road from Uvalde, Texas, where we saw a mass shooting happen in a school. And so I think that little by little, all of these things add up to where you just can no longer say, I can't participate here. I think some of it is, and what I want to inspire other people is like, your voice matters. One person's voice matters. And it takes one person to give a shit and to say like, okay, this is where I draw the line. I want to get involved on this issue that can really, make things happen, that can, move mountains. Because for me, I think there have been such small but big impactful stories in my life where it was working with Dreamers in San Antonio and, seeing the border crisis right down, again, the road from my home of just these children coming to seek asylum, but were met at the border. This is back in, 10 years ago, met with guns when they should not have been met with guns as children. And so I think little by little, all these stories just add up to where it was like, no, I can't stay silent anymore. I can use my voice and I can use my work to say, we need a change. And I think that's what I really want to convey to other people, because I think the scariest thing this Halloween is not giving a shit. And I think the scariest thing that anyone can do is not caring about something, not caring about one thing. I think sometimes in politics, things feel very overwhelming. Like you have to know everything, or like if you're going to be bring up politics at at a happy hour, at a cocktail party, or just chilling, with your friends, you have to be A+ on all of the issues. And that's daunting. And that's really, that just makes people not even want to bring it up in a social setting, not want to talk about it at a Halloween party. But I always kind of just want to say, find that one thing, because you don't need to be an expert at everything, but there's one thing that you got to care about, one thing in your story, one thing in your own life, whether that is healthcare, whether that is just being able to safely walk down the street to your neighborhood school, whether it is feeling safe in your neighborhood when it gets dark at 6 p.m. That is something that is something I truly care about as it gets darker and darker here as we're approaching daylight savings. And so I think for me, it's just all of this adds up, and everybody has a story and a reason to care. And I would love to just take that and kind of light that little match and say, okay, now let's go care together.
Yeah, you make such a great point about how people feel like they need to know everything in order to have an opinion about something or a topic or a policy or a candidate. And here's a secret, sweet, sweet, dear listener. The people in charge don't know what they're talking about either, right? Everybody is faking it, right? Nobody, it's like any industry, right? It's fake it till you make it. And that applies to politics too, right? I just don't know how you could look at the current administration and say, yes, those people have it figured out. They don't, right? They definitely don't any more than you. And so just saying, well, I don't really know, so I'm not going to engage. That is intentional, right? Folks don't want you to feel like you have what it takes to be involved.
Yeah.
And they do that on purpose. So we as voters, as Americans, as like regular people, like need to be able to shed that and to need to be able to say like, I don't know everything, but what I do know is an injustice when I see it. I do know that I should feel safe at the grocery store. I do know that I should be able to vote without having to jump through 15 different hoops to make it happen. I do know that dumping toxic waste into a river is not good for my community, right? Like you don't need to be an expert on toxic chemicals to know that dumping chemicals in your river is bad for the community, right? Like you don't need to be an expert on that, right? But you do need to get involved. You do need to show up and you need to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that is really important. I want folks to be able to like really hear what you just shared there.
Yeah.
Today, MaryEllen, your work is focused on digital media and helping campaigns and candidates get their content in front of voters, whether it's ads or other types of content. And something I've noticed as a Democratic media consultant myself and strategist, and the disclaimer for our listeners is that we get the opportunity to work together sometimes. But a lot of campaigns are really running not to lose instead of running to win. And I think there's a distinction there. What do we do about this?
Yeah, so I have truly loved working in digital for over 4 years now. And I think, so much of my personal philosophy and the philosophy of I work at DSPolitical is audience first targeting, is like reaching exactly who you want, where they are, wherever they are online. And I think that's something that we talk about, like what can we be doing better is we could be reaching people in exactly the way they want to be reached. And sometimes even in the exact language they want to be reached in, right? People are complicated. Where they surf is different. Every person has different habits. We talk a lot, and this is something I'm, really passionate about is, when we talk about Latinos and Latinos, I've seen it in Texas. We're like losing them along the border. We are losing Latino men. Like this is a problem that we continue to face, but we are also at the same time shouting from the rooftops, well, like Latinos are not a monolith. And in media, you have to understand the different layers of like, there are 3 different generations in a household, oftentimes consuming media in different ways. Some are still on linear, some are still on some are on CTV, some are going to be only like YouTube, primarily where a lot of our Latinos get their media from. They are high users and consumers of media on YouTube. And so understanding that nuance and really taking like the extra minute to layer on a strategy of how do we actually meet the moment, but meet the people that we are trying to reach is something that I'm, really passionate about. It goes from understanding their consumption habits. It goes from understanding where they are online, and also goes to understanding what language they want to consume their media. And, our country is such a wonderful bilingual place. And I know one of the things that we've done recently at DSPolitical is created a model on how likely someone is to want to consume their media in Spanish. So that way, do they want to consume Spanish only media? Do they want to consume a bilingual mix like 50-50, or do they prefer to consume their media only in English? And that's a hard conversation for a lot of people because everyone's relationship with their, with a language is different. And by kind of modeling and creating a score of how likely you are, we get to meet them exactly where they are and serve them the ads that say folks like you or others have created and put so much time and thought into the content and into the language in a way that reaches them where they are on the internet, across their cell phones, across their desktops and laptops, across their streaming, the biggest screen in the household, which is that streaming TV.
Yeah, there are so many things that I just really want to like unpack and talk more about. One that you just said, one is sort of like how we approach from an audience first perspective. I mean, the traditional political media companies out there, like no shade to our peers and colleagues in the space, but like traditional is that you cut one 30-second ad, you have a 15-second cut down, it's widescreen, and you run 90% of your budget on linear TV, and then you place the same exact ad on Facebook. And like, that's the strategy. And for too long, that has dominated the way that campaigns operate, when literally nothing else in media operates this way. You still may have a 30 and 15-second linear TV ad, right? Like that's not gone. But this idea that you can just take that and run that everywhere is so outdated. It's malpractice, in my opinion, right? Like media and it's not as simple as just saying it needs to be vertical, right? Like you actually need a different piece of creative to run on social, and you need a different piece of creative to run on Meta, the Meta ecosystem versus Snapchat. Like you need to think about the language. You need to think about all of these different pieces. And too often candidates just like are not doing that because their media consultants are not advising them to do that.
Yeah, I was actually going to turn this question to you and be like, you're the creative guru. So how many times are you recutting? Guru. Yeah, but like how many times are you recutting something, or like how many creative formats is like in one set? It's like 29, 34. Like it's, there are so many different formats. I
wish that it was 29 or 34. I'm lucky if I get 5, right? Like it really depends on the client and like their willingness. In my experience, it always starts really wide, right? Like we start with this big vision, this big dream, like we're going to cut all these different versions of creative that we can place in all these different places and target all these different audiences with creative that's customized to them. But then we always end up running up against, budget, timeline, logistics, the willingness of the organization or campaign to be able to do that. That can be a big challenge. But there's still just such a culture in our space in democratic politics of like, these legacy media consultants, their word is the Bible, and like we're just going to do exactly what they say, and they have this one model. But because here's the thing. It's harder to cut a bunch of different versions of media than it is to run the same thing, right? Like it's easier for legacy media consultants to be like, well, I'm just going to produce one 30-second spot that will just run everywhere versus writing 10 different scripts and having 10 different things that you have to film at your shoot, right? Like, so that's like the first thing. You also talked a bit about language. And I think like this is really important, like we talk a lot about not treating Latinos like a monolith. We say that, but I feel like people don't always like mean it, or they don't always implement that when they're actually doing the work, right? Like you can't just like, so often I'm just asked, can we just translate it to Spanish? And I'm like, well, Spanish is actually, I don't even speak Spanish, and I can tell you like Spanish is longer. Spanish sentences are longer than English sentences. So like it's not as simple as taking a 30-second spot and just translating it to Spanish, because it will be longer than 30 seconds. You have to completely rewrite it, and it has to come from a Spanish first perspective. You also have to think about like what is the audience that you're talking to, because if you're talking to Latino voters in South Florida who are primarily Cuban versus Puerto Ricans in New York, right? We're talking about a very different audience. The other thing is like Puerto Ricans in New York may not be even like first gen Latinos, right? Like most of them speak English primarily. And while they may speak Spanish, they actually might be browsing the internet in English. And so just targeting them with a generically translated Spanish ad in Mexican Spanish is going to be very clear that you don't know what you're talking about to these audiences.
You hit it right on the money. Dialect is key. I like to tell this story. I am a Mexican American, and even among my own friends, who the majority of us are Mexican Americans, we always joke and we're like, what is the word for a straw? Like, you put a straw in your margarita or in your drink, and what is the word? And I call it a popote, but other folks call it something completely different, because dialects, whether you're Guatemalan or Cuban or Puerto Rican and Dominican, are different. And so it's not just enough anymore to say your browser setting is set to Spanish. Let's target you in Spanish, just the one Spanish that we've cut the ad in. We can go farther and go to what dialect are you using, and have this layer of cultural competency in the way we create the ads, but also in the way we place the ads. It's a two-way street there.
Yes, absolutely. And if you ask me, you're better off just running it in English than getting your dialect completely off, because you look like a fool. Like it looks like you don't understand the community you're trying to talk to, and it actually hurts trust with that community, I feel, versus just saying, here's our ad in English, and we're just gonna run it in English. And I don't know, maybe you have a different take than me here, MaryEllen, but like if you're gonna run a shitty dialect or an incorrect dialect or with cultural references that aren't relevant to the community, you're probably just better off running the ad in English. I don't know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, I've had this conversation with some friends who've run campaigns or had run for office recently. I want to go for gold, and I want to go for I want everyone to feel like they belong, everyone to feel like we have talked to them. And obviously this is like my big, hairy, audacious goal. It takes money, it takes resources, but I want to go for gold and say, like, let's target people exactly the way they want to be targeted, in the language they prefer, going the extra mile, in low propensity, voting, boxes, in areas where people are not talking to them, in areas where they normally get, maybe one pass on a walk universe, but are, in several pieces of mail. Like I want us to start going for the gold. There are still too many people that I just talked to in Ubers, at a cafe, at a bar, at a restaurant that are like, I wasn't in that, and they don't say it that way because they don't understand. They're like, what do you mean? But like, they feel like they're like, no one talked to me. I didn't get a mailer. I didn't get a digital ad, or they didn't see it, because sometimes we are doing the work, but they don't see it in a way that is digestible for them, or that they're like, oh, this means someone wants my vote. And so I am all about right now going big, going for the gold, trying to make sure that every single person matters, because every person out there has a story right now. And I think, Topher, this is something that I feel like in the past couple of years, I've had the opportunity to be a little bit more intentional with my interactions with people, just in, going around my daily life. And whether that is someone, an Uber driver, a taxi driver, a Lyft driver, or if that is, the person who makes your morning cup of coffee, in my case, matcha latte every day. And I think of all these people who are in your ecosystem, and you love them and you love seeing their faces, or they help you get through the day by supplying you with infinite caffeine. But what's their story? And I think that there are, folks that I've encountered that, they're afraid that their parents are going to get picked up by ICE. They take the bus to work and are frustrated by the lack of infrastructure or the lack of investment in public transportation. They are here on a visa and truly just want to be able to be recognized as a citizen of the United States as they contribute and pay taxes and work here. But the system continually, makes it difficult for them. And they just are continuing to figure out how to renew a visa. And, have not gone home for a decade because they can't go back to their country without messing up that process. And so I think it's about all these people that we interact with on a daily basis, whether it's, like you said, a surfer in California that just cares about the climate and the pollution in the water. That is one issue that they care about, that we can agree on, or we can find some common ground, and use that as a way to care, and a way to how are we talking to all these different people with different stories, different backgrounds, and making them feel like you matter, your voice matters. And this is why this candidate is important to win, because they also care about the water for surfers. They also care about you being able to get to work and pay your bills. They also care about, your families and protecting families, and protecting our Latino communities. And so that is, I think, where we can connect all of the dots here.
You make such a good point about how a lot of folks feel like they don't see any of the political content. And part of it, I think, is that people are really burnt out by politics, and they really just when a generic ad comes on or something comes through their feed, they just sort of disengage, right? And I think a lot of political content is really boring. It's really boring. And if you are on social media or something, or you're on YouTube, you're primarily on these platforms to be entertained, right? It's a form of entertainment. And so if you have boring content, people are not going to engage with it. You need your content to be entertaining. It needs to be entertainment first. It needs to be engaging. It needs to hit people in the face when they see it, right? It needs a jingle. I'm always telling clients, let's get a jingle, let's get a song. I'm like an evangelist for a jingle, for a political ad. What happened to jingles in political ads? Why don't we do this anymore? I was watching TV last night. I was watching the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Go watch it if you haven't. But every single commercial had a jingle. Right? Liberty, liberty. We all know these, right?
We know it.
The Stanley Steamer one, right? Literally every single
cleaner.
one of these ads. Yeah. I know their phone number because of the 1-800-588-2300 Empire. That's Empire. But whatever. The point is that I have their phone number memorized, and like mine, my husband's, and my mom's, and like that's it. But like those are things that embed themselves in your brain, and we need to be doing more of those. And those kinds of things are so impressionable to users, and people are entertained by them. They remember them, right? Instead of just saying like, I'm going to defend democracy and like, vote for me on November 4th. Boring, right? Rock song, entertaining, right? Like, I just think like if we can rethink how we do some of this creative, we can go a lot further. Speaking of which, I personally am feeling a little bit uninspired by a lot of Democrats in Washington right now. We're still, as we record this, still in the middle of a government shutdown, though maybe by the time it airs, we'll be out of it, but I'm not feeling very hopeful. Are there any candidates on the local level who are inspiring you today? Okay,
so I'm going to answer your question by not answering your question here, because I feel like being in politics forever, my mom always is like, why didn't you take a photo with them? Like, why didn't, and she like wants photos with like me and all these politicians that I've worked with over the years. She's like so proud. But at the same time, I'm like, they're humans, and I don't get kind of, there's a few that I get like completely starstruck. Representative John Lewis was one that I got like completely starstruck by,
sure.
And would 100% want to take a photo with him. But, when I think about people who are inspiring me right now, I actually think it's the people, the average local, the average American that is now participating in politics in a way they never did before. And I think that is, something that I have seen in the last year. I think it's obviously, we saw a surge, women's marches, all those kinds of things when Trump got elected the first time. But when he got elected the second time, I have seen a shift. I have tias that have gone to political protest for the first time in their lives. And that is something that, it's they are saying no more. They have that moment has happened for them. They are going to join the No Kings March. And I, in last cycle, I remember, my family calling me and saying like, what can we do? What can we do? And I, for the first time, had family members that gave their very first $5, their very first piece of their own treasure to Kamala Harris. And that is what is inspiring me. Right now, we've just came off a couple of weeks ago, the No Kings March that was on October 18th. I see people that are, at restaurants, at coffee shops that are now like having this dialogue just right out in the open saying, are you going after your shift? Oh, I'll be there. I'm going to stop by. And like, to me, that is what's inspiring, is that people are going to protest for the very first time. Because Topher, you and I have been doing this for a long time. Getting people to come to us to protest, it was not fun. It was not the social gathering. You're like, hey, let's go spend our Saturday morning together, like protesting or marching. Like I couldn't get my friends to come with me to the Cesar Chavez March and understand why I was so proud as the daughter of a farm worker and a janitor to spend my weekend doing these kinds of things. And so that, I think, is what's been truly inspiring to me, is to see more people saying, I will be there. I will drive. What sign should I make? This is now something, again, like I want to be part of this process, and I want to inspire others. Like they're now inviting other people. Like it's becoming a social thing of like, I went to my first one. Now who wants to drive with me? And that, I think, is what's truly inspiring. Because if you know anything about LA, if there's a protest downtown and you live on the West Side, that is really hard to get to. You have to drive all the way. You have to find parking. Not accessible, but people are doing it, and people are doing it for the first time and not complaining that it's not right down the street in Santa Monica or in Venice. They're like, I will be there and I'm going to show up. And so those are the people right now that are inspiring me, who show up to their jobs every day, even if they're terrified of what's happening in their neighborhoods, even if they're terrified of what could happen to their parents. That makes me feel like we are going to be in a better place here on the next election.
Oof, I hope you're right. We love a carpool to a protest, so that's great. But you're right. I mean, seeing so many people, I remember just like, it's like for so long has felt like pulling teeth to get people to like show up to anything, right? One thing I will just plug as a organizer at my core, as like a Democratic strategist, like, yes, show up to the protest. That's great. But you need to do more than just, that's and true. Like, I hate to do this like call to action. Like it's not good enough.
This is actually
but,
great. But if we don't do a call to action, we would not be doing our job.
We have to be doing this call to action. So like if you show up to a protest, to a No Kings rally, fantastic. If the only thing you're doing, though, is showing up, taking a picture with a sign, and then going to brunch and then disengaging after that, like, I hate to break it to you, but like that is not enough. As we see, like there's no one coming to save us. Like we have to do better. You need to go to a phone bank. You need to go knock doors. You need to go text voters. You need to be having these conversations outside of just
call your congressman. I'm biased, and like I tell people, like, did you know he can help you with that? She can help you with getting your passport or getting. Yes. I'm like, your Social Security benefits. I'm a evangelist for calling your congressman.
2 episodes ago on this podcast, we had my congresswoman Brittany Patterson on, and she talked about the importance of contacting your member of Congress. Right, like this is a thing, like straight from the member of Congress's mouth. So like I would just say, like, yes, go to the protest, make a cute sign, post it on Instagram, but also show up to volunteer. I ran a text bank on Tuesday. I'm running a text bank tonight before this election. And like literally the only people who show up to this are like very old people and people who are paid to be there. And like we need more people our age showing up to these things to make a difference, because that is where you move voters. Every day we're having these conversations with real voters, right? Like not just making signs and posting on the internet. So I just like have to soapbox this a little bit. I'm so pumped that people are going to protests and participating in that way. And I would just encourage folks to like take one more step, right? Like that's the first step. The next step is show up to volunteer, get involved in a local campaign, make it happen. There's still time this weekend to go get a walk packet and knock some doors. I know it feels intimidating, but once you get into the groove of it, it's actually really fun to be talking to your neighbors about like what's happening in your neighborhood. It's super dope. So anyways,
it's less scary than a haunted house. It's not as scary as a haunted house. That terrifies me. Walking up the street to talk to neighbors, that's scary. Good.
I hate horror movies. My husband loves them. I can't do it. I can like tolerate a haunted house because I know it's only like 15, 20 minutes long. But like, I'm with you. Those things are much scarier than talking to like regular people. Okay, MaryEllen, we're going to play a game.
Okay.
It's a this or that, some rapid fire questions about elections. Are you ready?
Ooh, I'm ready.
Okay. First one, early voting or election day voting?
Early voting. I don't like lines. Voting.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, voting solo or making it a family affair?
I vote solo.
That's fair. You can vote solo. That's all right.
Yeah. That's my like me time.
I love it. You got to take it when you can get it. Okay, I voted stickers or polling place selfies?
I voted sticker.
I love an I voted sticker. I'm a sucker.
I want
for
everyone to know sticker, but I want everyone to know what I did today. And then I'm going to probably wear it for 3 days because then it's a reminder for everybody else.
I usually ask you if I can have a couple extra if I go to the actual polling place so that I can like wear them on multiple outfits.
Yeah. It's great.
Okay. Knocking doors or phone banking?
I think phone banking because I can get a higher volume of calls done than walking. And I want to feel like I did everything I could and left it all on the field. So let's go phone banking. I
feel that. And you're like right from a strategy standpoint. However, I really like getting my steps in, feeling the sun on my face. If it's still, here in Colorado, it's still sunny, but not everywhere. And I also really like just like being able to have conversations like in person with people. It's a lot harder for someone to like.
It's true.
Tell you off when you're like talking to them face to face.
It's going to be a little higher because you can say, wait, like, let me find that one thing to get you to keep talking to me, whether they're a little bit easier to hang up on you.
All right, last one. Election night watch party or early to bed for morning results?
Election night watch party. You got to hang in there. You're in it for the long haul. There's nothing scarier than waking up to the news that Donald Trump has won again, because I did go to sleep that time. And that was the scariest. That was the worst morning after I've ever had. Staying up late, going to bed, being like, it'll be called in the morning. That wake up call was the scariest thing that ever happened to me, probably.
Oof,
Not
that's
really,
rough.
But, So yeah, we're going to go for the long haul and stay up at the watch party.
Or if you're like a real political strategist, you're at both because you've stayed up all night long managing results and you're in a war room and you're like responding to press questions and like trying to like, I don't know, do whatever you got to do overnight. I've also done that. That was the 2020 election. I slept like an hour because we were waiting for Wisconsin results to come in. And it just was like the longest night of my life. But that one went a little better than 24. All right, MaryEllen, last question of the podcast today, and the most important one. Did you ever receive a participation trophy, and what was it for?
I love it. I love a good trophy. My parents have like boxes of trophies and medals in their house that are all mine. I totally received some participation trophies. One I can think of in particular is everyone always asks, "Oh, did you play sports?" And I'm like, no, but I was the middle school 8th grade volleyball manager. And when the season ended and everybody got a trophy, so did I. And did I do anything to contribute to that win? Not on the court, but every day in preparing for those games. I was the manager, so I'm proud of that trophy.
Honestly, of course you were the manager. Like, that's like not shocking to me at all. You were like, no. I'm going to make sure that all these volleyball players like are on time, ready to go. Mm-hmm. They got their shit together. None of these volleyball players are going to be slacking when I'm the manager.
Yeah, if anyone knew me at 10 and 11 and 12 and 13, you'd be like, oh my gosh, she has not changed. How did this happen?
I love that so much. All right, MaryEllen, where can folks find you to connect, follow, keep the conversation going?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's probably the best bet. I'm on LinkedIn, love a good LinkedIn to share stories and connect with people and get to do real life work with them. And so Topher, feel free to drop that in a link in the notes or whatever, is on however people do their podcast these days.
Check the show notes. We will have MaryEllen's LinkedIn there for you to connect with her. She's a great, brilliant digital strategist and political mind, and we're lucky to have her on the podcast today. Thank you for coming on, MaryEllen.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Participation Trophy. I'm your host, Topher Williams. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Participation Trophy Podcast, and follow me on Instagram at @TophMcGof, so you don't miss one single thing. Until next time, remember, it's up to us to make the world that we want to see. Bye.